I who 24F, let's call me Rachel, had just started putting my life together after college. I graduated from a small university in Oregon, and like most people my age, I was juggling student loans, my first full-time job, and trying to figure out what it meant to actually be an adult. I'd moved to Austin, Texas a few months earlier and somehow, miraculously, qualified for a modest condo. Not a huge place, but it was mine. My mortgage was manageable, my job in digital marketing paid decently, and for the first time ever, I felt like I had stability. That sense of security would be completely destroyed by a single phone call. It was my dad, Ronald. We hadn't been super close growing up. He and my mom divorced when I was 9, and while I lived with her, he'd show up once in a while for birthdays, the occasional dinner, or to drop off a weird, out-of-place gift. We weren't estranged, but we weren't close either. He lived back in Sacramento with his girlfriend at the time, now wife, Lori, a woman who always gave me weird vibes. So anyway, the phone rings. "Hey, Ratch," he starts, sounding casual. "You get that credit confirmation in the mail?" I blink. "What credit confirmation?" "You know, the loan I took out. I put it under your name." "It's fine, I'm paying it." I remember exactly where I was standing, barefoot in my kitchen, holding a cup of coffee that suddenly felt heavy as hell. "You, what?" I said, thinking maybe I misheard him. "I needed some quick cash," he said like we were discussing the weather. "The interest rate's better with your credit score." "Don't worry, I'll handle the payments." Already started, actually. I just needed it fast. He might as well have punched me through the phone. I dropped the mug. It shattered on the tile. "Dad, you committed identity fraud." I shouted. "That's my name. That's my credit. You didn't even ask me." "Oh, come on," he said. "It's not a big deal. You're not using that part of your credit anyway, and I'm your father. It's just temporary. Lori needed a little help with something. It's handled." Handled. The audacity of that word still pisses me off. I told him to cancel it immediately. He chuckled. Told me I was being dramatic. Then he changed the subject. Asked how I liked Austin. I hung up on him. At first, I tried to tell myself it'd be okay. He'd pay it off, like he said. I'd get an official letter in the mail saying the balance was zero, and it would all go away. I even convinced myself not to call the bank right away. I thought if I made a fuss, it might get worse. Like if I poked the beast, it would bite back. That was mistake number 1. 3 months later, I started getting notices. Emails. Physical letters. Calls. From a bank I'd never heard of, Linton Direct Lending or something like that. They were asking for payment on a $42,000 personal loan I allegedly took out. My stomach dropped. I finally called them. The rep was polite, but her tone changed the moment I gave her my social and verified my identity. "Miss Kramer, your account is delinquent. We've attempted to contact you several times." "I didn't take out a loan," I said flatly. "Someone else used my information." She paused. "You're saying this loan was fraudulent?" "Yes," I said. "My father admitted to it. He said he was paying it. I didn't sign anything." There was a pause. Then she said, "We have digital authorization, voice verification, and address confirmation from your listed residence at the time." "What address?" I asked. She gave me my old childhood home. Where my dad still lived, well, until recently. I asked what could be done. She told me I needed to file a police report, send in a fraud affidavit, and they'd begin an investigation. But meanwhile, my credit was being destroyed, and because I'd already missed 2 payments on the personal loan, the delinquency was now impacting my mortgage. Oh yeah, my mortgage company had noticed too. I got a lovely letter from them saying that due to my credit changes, my interest rate was being reassessed, and I should prepare for an increase if I didn't resolve the issue. It was like watching everything I built sink into the earth. I tried calling my dad. He didn't pick up. Then I tried Lori. She blocked me. I sent texts, emails, left voicemails. No reply. My mom, who lives in Arizona now, was horrified. She offered to help with a lawyer, but she's not rich and I wasn't ready to start a war. So instead, I took time off work, flew back to Sacramento, and decided to confront my dad face to face. What I didn't expect was how calm he'd be. When I stepped off the plane in Sacramento, I was running on caffeine, adrenaline, and pure rage. I hadn't slept properly in days. Between the loan collectors, the mortgage company breathing down my neck, and my bank putting a freeze on my credit card due to suspicious activity, my life was spiraling. I took a rideshare straight to my dad's place, or rather, the house I grew up in. It was still listed under his name, but I wasn't sure who actually lived there anymore. As the car pulled into the familiar cul-de-sac, my stomach twisted. I hadn't been back in years. The house looked different. Not worse, just less like mine. The front yard was overgrown, and the red paint on the shutters was chipping. Lori's SUV was parked in the driveway, but no sign of Dad's car. I knocked. No answer. I knocked harder. After the third round, the door opened. It was Lori. She looked at me like I was a door-to-door sales rep, not her husband's daughter. "Rachel," she said flatly. "What are you doing here?" "I need to talk to my dad." "He's not here," she said, and tried to close the door. I stuck my foot in. "Then when will he be?" She sighed and rolled her eyes. "He's at the lake house. He moved there last week." The lake house. That was new. He moved? I asked. Without telling me? Lori folded her arms. He didn't think you'd care. You two aren't exactly close. I wanted to scream. Instead, I asked for the address. She resisted at first, but I must have looked wild enough that she gave it up just to get rid of me. The lake house was a 45-minute drive north, tucked away near Folsom Lake. It was modest but nice, one of those properties that people call rustic on Zillow. His car was there. I parked next to it, walked up the stone path, and knocked. He opened the door. "Hey, kid," he said, smiling like this was a casual visit. "Surprised to see you." "You shouldn't be," I said, stepping inside without asking. The place smelled like cigars and wood polish. There was a fire going. My dad, Ronald, wore a gray hoodie and basketball shorts. He looked relaxed. Happy, even. "What the hell, Dad?" I said. "You took out a $42,000 loan in my name and ghosted me? They're threatening to repossess my condo." He walked over to the bar cart, poured himself a bourbon, and sat down. "First of all, you're not losing your condo," he said. "They always make those threats. It's scare tactics." Scare tactics? My mortgage company raised my interest rate. My credit is trash. I'm getting sued. "Well, I'm sorry about that," he said, but he didn't sound sorry. "But come on, Rachel. You're 24. You've got time. You'll bounce back." He actually smiled when he said that. Smiled. "You're acting like this is no big deal," I said, trying not to lose it. "You stole my identity. You signed documents. You faked information." "I didn't fake anything," he said defensively. "You're my daughter. You lived at my house. That address is legitimate. I even used your real employment history." My jaw dropped. "You stalked my LinkedIn or something?" He shrugged. "You can't just do that." I shouted. "You've destroyed my life." "And for what? For Lori? For her plastic surgery business or whatever the hell it was? She needed help getting her salon off the ground, he said. And I knew I couldn't get approved myself. My credit's not great. I actually laughed. Bitter, angry laughter. You think that justifies screwing me over? And then just running off to a lake house like nothing happened? He took a sip of his bourbon. Look, I get you're upset. But don't act like I ruined you. You're smart. You've got a job. You'll rebuild. You really don't feel bad at all, do you? He was quiet for a beat. Then he said, Rachel, you're not a kid anymore. The world's hard. Sometimes you gotta bend the rules. This is just how life works. He stood up and stretched like we were done here. Anyway, I've got dinner plans. Lori's picking me up soon. I suggest you take a deep breath and let this go. It's already done. He walked into the bedroom and shut the door. I sat there on the couch, stunned. Completely numb. My own father had thrown me to the wolves and acted like I should thank him for the experience. When he finally came out, dressed in a button-down and cologne like he was headed to a 5-star date, he didn't even make eye contact. Just grabbed his keys and said, You'll be fine, Ratch. You're tough like your old man. And then he left. I stayed in that house for maybe 10 more minutes. Long enough to cry. Then I took photos of everything, the mail on the table with his name, proof he lived there, the fancy electronics he somehow bought while ignoring debt collectors. And when I got back to Austin, I called the police. If he thought I was going to let this slide, he didn't know me at all. When I got back to Austin, I didn't unpack. I didn't sleep. I walked through my front door, dropped my suitcase, and immediately called the Austin Police Department. They redirected me to the Texas Attorney General's office, who then referred me to a federal identity theft task force. I filed an official fraud affidavit, opened a case with the FTC, and sent a formal dispute to the loan company, Linton Direct Lending. The process was exhausting. There were forms, calls, hold music, transfers, waiting rooms, verification codes, and a voice in the back of my head constantly whispering, what if this doesn't work? What if they don't believe you? I attached everything, screenshots of my texts with my dad, voicemails, bank notices, photos I took at the lake house, including one where his unopened credit card statement sat next to a box of cigars and a #OneDad mug. And you know what the bank said? We'll investigate, but you're still liable during the process. Still liable. That meant I either paid monthly or risked defaulting again. The collectors didn't stop. They didn't care that I was the victim. My credit score was already in the 500s, and I got a polite call from my mortgage provider that sounded less like concern and more like a warning shot. Miss Kramer, the woman said. You're now flagged as a high-risk borrower. 1 more month of delinquency, and we will begin foreclosure proceedings. That night I finally cracked. I sat in my car in the Target parking lot and just sobbed. Loud, ugly, primal crying. It felt like my lungs were folding in on themselves. Then, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I answered without thinking. Rachel Kramer, a male voice asked. This is Detective Aaron Cole with the Sacramento County Sheriff's Department. We received your complaint regarding identity theft. Can we speak? I felt a tiny spark of hope. Someone was finally taking it seriously. Over the next week, Detective Cole asked for everything I had. I sent him the entire folder, even Lori's Instagram posts where she was showing off the salon expansion that she bragged was fully funded. One of the comments from my dad read, "Anything for my Queen Red Heart money with wings." That alone made me want to throw my phone in the ocean. The detective didn't say much at first. But a few days later, he called me back and said something I'll never forget. Rachel, this wasn't the only loan. I gripped the edge of the kitchen counter. What do you mean? I mean, he said slowly, your father used your name on 2 additional loans totaling just over $28,000. One for a vehicle, a used Jeep Cherokee. The other was a business loan submitted through a startup lending platform. That one's under review, but your signature appears on it. I never signed anything, I said. None of that. I believe you, he replied. But here's the thing, proving coercion or forgery in family-related fraud cases is messy. Especially since he listed your previous address, your actual workplace, and other correct info. It looks real on paper. I sank into a chair. So what happens now? Well, he said, the DA might pursue criminal charges. But that takes time. Meanwhile, you need to get a lawyer. Civil litigation may be the fastest way to push back on your liability. I hung up and just stared at the ceiling. More loans. More debt. My entire financial future was tied up in a storm I didn't even see coming. I finally did what I should have done months ago. I hired an attorney, Marla Hastings, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s with a voice like gravel and the patience of a saint. She read through everything in under 2 hours and then looked me dead in the eye. Your dad screwed you hard, she said. But we're going to screw him right back, legally. She filed a civil suit in Sacramento County Court within 48 hours, Rachel Kramer vs. Ronald Kramer, for identity fraud, financial damages, and emotional distress. My dad was officially served at the lake house. How do I know? Because he called me. Are you serious, Rachel? He said. You're suing me? Your own father? You stopped being my father when you sold my future to buy Lori's Botox bar, I snapped. He went quiet. Then, with complete indignation, he said. You're blowing this out of proportion. I told you I'd handle it. You didn't handle anything, I said. You lied. You disappeared. You made this mess and left me to drown in it. His voice turned cold. You think this makes you the good guy? Dragging your own blood into court? Over some stupid money? You think that's gonna look good to a judge? I said, no, but the loan paperwork with your voice authorization will. Click. He hung up. The next morning, I woke up to an anonymous burner account on Instagram posting screenshots of my old college party photos. Stuff like me holding a drink, dancing with friends, laughing in stupid hats. The captions? Things like, this her? Big victim energy wineglass crown. Poor little fraud princess can't handle a few bills. Someone was trying to smear me. Lori. It had to be. I took screenshots. Sent them to my lawyer. She just responded with, they're panicking. That's good. Let 'em panic. The court date was set for a preliminary hearing in Sacramento County Superior Court. I flew in the night before with my lawyer, Marla Hastings. She brought a rolling suitcase full of documents, digital files, and that intimidating energy that makes grown men fold. She didn't smile once. You ready? She asked over breakfast in the hotel lobby. I'm terrified, I admitted. She nodded. Good. Fear makes people sharp. Stay sharp. Walking into the courtroom was surreal. My palms were sweaty, and my brain felt like it was wrapped in gauze. I spotted my dad right away, sitting at the defendant's table in a blazer he probably hadn't worn since my high school graduation. Next to him was his attorney, some slick, tanned guy with gelled back hair and a face you don't trust. I later learned his name was Cliff Ordell, and he specialized in family-related civil disputes, which I quickly realized was code for scumbag with a briefcase. My dad didn't even look at me. Not once. He fiddled with a pen and whispered to Cliff while Lori sat in the back row in a tight beige dress, wearing sunglasses inside like she was testifying at a mob trial. She smirked at me when we made eye contact. The judge, Honorable Lisa DeWitt, was the kind of woman who doesn't suffer fools. She glanced through the case file and got straight to it. Miss Kramer, you're alleging your father took out multiple lines of credit under your name without consent, causing significant financial harm. Mr. Kramer, you deny these allegations? Cliff stood up. Your Honor, we don't deny that loans were taken under Miss Kramer's name. However, we argue there was implied consent, given the familial relationship, shared address history, and mutual benefit. I blinked. Implied consent? Marla stood up with that fire she always had when she smelled bullshit. Your Honor, Miss Kramer never signed or verbally authorized these loans. The defendant forged her electronic signature, submitted falsified application data, and never informed her of the debt until after she was already flagged by creditors. Cliff responded, that's unprovable speculation. Our position is that Mr. Kramer acted under the belief that his daughter, who has historically depended on him, would support his financial endeavors for the benefit of the family. I nearly laughed. Historically depended on him? I whispered to Marla. He didn't even help pay for my college textbooks. Marla didn't blink. We'll dismantle that line so hard he'll forget which daughter he screwed over. The judge allowed us to proceed to discovery and scheduled a follow-up hearing. That's when things got weirder. Later that week, I got an email. It was from my aunt, my dad's sister, Linda. We hadn't spoken in years, but her message was short and gutting. Rachel, I don't want to get involved in this, but I think you should know. Ronald is telling everyone in the family that you offered to co-sign those loans. That you were helping him get back on his feet. Grandma believes him. So does Uncle Dennis. I'm sorry. I just sat there staring at the screen. He was painting me as a willing accomplice. That's when I realized it wasn't just about money anymore. He was trying to erase the truth itself. Twist the story until people forgot what actually happened. Make me the brat daughter who turned on her poor, struggling dad. I forwarded the email to Marla. She replied 2 minutes later. We're subpoenaing the bank audio logs. If you used voice authentication, it'll be there. We'll prove it wasn't you. Then came the real punch to the gut. My ex-boyfriend, Caleb, who I hadn't spoken to in almost a year, texted me out of the blue. Hey, just a heads up, your dad called me last week. He asked if I remembered you ever talking about helping him financially. He said his lawyer might contact me. I stared at the message, stunned. What did you say? I asked. He replied. I told him I didn't remember you saying that. But he's trying to build a case that you were okay with it. Said you were emotionally supportive of his business plans. I blocked his number. I felt sick. My dad was reaching into my past relationships to build a fake narrative that I'd somehow volunteered to be financially ruined. Marla arranged to have Caleb sign a sworn affidavit denying any knowledge of financial consent. She also subpoenaed the loan company's call logs. What we got back was better than we hoped. In one of the recordings, my dad had used his own voice but stated, "Yeah, this is Rachel Kramer. I'm applying for the loan. You can call me Ron if you want, it's just a nickname my dad gave me." He even laughed after saying it. The idiot admitted to impersonating me, on tape. But just when it looked like we had him dead to rights, something happened. We got a notice from the court. Ronald had filed a counterclaim, accusing me of defamation of character, public harassment, and emotional damages caused by false allegations. He claimed that my lawsuit had caused him to lose business opportunities, suffer public embarrassment, and, get this, damage his marriage. I threw the document across the room. Marla picked it up, scanned it, and said, "They're trying to bury you in paper. Intimidation tactic. Stay the course." And then, the final betrayal. The next morning, I got a message from my own cousin, Linda's daughter Melissa, someone I'd always been close to. "Hey, not trying to pick sides but... Grandpa's birthday party? You're not invited. Grandma said it's best you stay away till things settle down." Grandma. The woman who used to braid my hair when I was 5. Who made me birthday pancakes? My dad had poisoned them all. I didn't cry when Melissa texted me. I wish I could say I was angry, but it was something worse. It was numbness. A hollowness in my chest, like someone had scooped out the part of me that believed family meant something. They weren't just ignoring what my dad did, they were helping him cover it. By the time Grandpa's birthday came around, I wasn't even tempted to crash it. The thought of walking into a room full of people whispering that I turned on my own blood made me feel sick. I spent that day rewatching call logs with Marla instead, collecting more timestamps, more evidence. And every time I heard Ronald's voice pretending to be me, his voice shifting into this strange high-pitched register, literally mocking me while authorizing loans, I felt a quiet, simmering rage. Like maybe I wasn't numb after all. Maybe I was sharpening. At the next hearing, we came in swinging. Marla played the voice recordings for the court. One of them went. Yes, this is Rachel Kramer. My date of birth is September 18, 1998, and I am applying for the personal loan to help fund my small business, thank you so much. That voice? Not mine. Clearly male. Clearly Ronald. Cliff, his lawyer, tried to interrupt, Your Honor, voice recognition is subjective. But Judge DeWitt cut him off like a guillotine. Mr. Ordell, is this or is this not your client's voice? Cliff hesitated. I can't confirm that definitively. Judge DeWitt leaned forward. Then I'll confirm it for you. Because it sounds identical to the man sitting 10 feet from me. My dad didn't speak. He just sat there, staring straight ahead, hands clasped. And then, just when we thought we had him pinned, Cliff pulled a dirty card. He submitted a sworn affidavit from Lori. In it, she claimed that I had visited them in Sacramento months earlier and had openly offered to help Ronald apply for business loans in her name. She wrote, Rachel said she believed in family legacy and wanted to be a part of something that built generational wealth. She even said, use my credit if it helps you guys. I felt my stomach drop. That quote? Completely fabricated. I'd never said anything remotely like it. But the affidavit was signed. Notarized. On record. I whispered, she's lying. Marla whispered back, of course she is. And we're going to prove it. Over the next 2 weeks, we dug. Marla hired a private investigator named Carson Shaw, a former journalist with a nose for hypocrisy. Within days, he unearthed something gold. An old Instagram story from Lori's account, before the salon expansion, where she posted a video of herself and Ronald drinking champagne, with the caption. Loan finally came through clinking glasses, fire my man made it happen, couldn't trust anyone else. That post was timestamped 3 days before the loan in question was even approved. It directly contradicted her affidavit that I was the one who secured it. Carson also found a post in the comments where Ronald replied. It's all you, babe. Whatever you want, I make it happen, even if it means bending the rules, smirking face. It was subtle, but damning. We printed everything. At the next hearing, Marla presented the story screenshots to the judge, with the timestamps, metadata, and a full digital trail. Lori tried to say it was fake, but Carson showed the original source data scraped from the back end of her public Instagram archive. Judge DeWitt didn't hide her disgust. Mrs. Whitman, you knowingly submitted false statements to this court. You are now exposed to perjury liability. Lori went pale. Cliff turned to Ronald with that look, the what the hell did you get me into look. And then, in a quiet little corner of the courtroom, my dad cracked. He didn't apologize. He didn't cry. But he did something I'll never forget. He leaned forward on the defendant's table, whispered to Cliff, and then said loud enough for the judge to hear. Can we settle? The room went silent. Marla didn't flinch. She stood up, walked over to the bench with me, and asked, you want this to end? Or do you want him nailed to the wall? I thought about it. About the foreclosure notices. The hours I lost rebuilding my credit. The fake social media smears. The cousins who'd blocked me. The memory of him walking into that lake house in Cologne and shorts like my life wasn't collapsing. I looked at her and said, I want the wall. The judge granted a continuance to begin full civil trial preparations. Marla immediately filed a motion to include punitive damages, arguing malicious fraud and reputational harm. If approved, my dad wouldn't just owe the loan amounts, he'd owe far more. We had leverage now. And that's when Ronald did the most cowardly thing yet. He transferred ownership of the lake house to Lori's name to avoid asset seizure. But Carson? He found the deed transfer date. It happened after the lawsuit was filed. Marla grinned. That's fraudulent conveyance, she said. He just gave us another bullet. But the victory came at a price. That week, I got a letter from my grandfather. Handwritten. Rachel. You have embarrassed this family. Your father made mistakes, but dragging him through court is cruel. Family doesn't sue family. It forgives. Please don't come around anymore until you've thought about what you're doing. Grandpa. There wasn't a single word asking what Ronald actually did. No question about how I was holding up. No concern for the debt, the legal fees, or the stress. Just shame. I didn't write back. But I took a photo of the letter, emailed it to Marla, and said, let's burn him. The trial started on a gray Monday morning. Rain tapped against the courthouse windows like it knew the weight of the day. My suit itched. My stomach was a fist. But I walked into that courtroom with my head up because I had one goal. Make them see who he really was. Ronald sat at the defense table in a clean navy suit, his hair slicked back, his expression neutral. The man who used to ruffle my hair when I was 6 now looked like a corporate vampire ready to charm the jury into forgetting what he'd done. Lori was there too, behind him, lips pursed and fingers clutching a designer handbag like it might protect her from perjury. Her eyes followed me when I walked in, full of hatred and something else, fear. Marla whispered to me as we sat down. Remember. The truth's a knife. You just need to hold it steady. Opening statements went as expected. Cliff, Ronald's lawyer, tried to paint the whole case as a family misunderstanding that spiraled. He used words like intentions, miscommunication, and emotional overreaction. He even said, at no point did Mr. Kramer act out of malice, only desperation, trusting that his daughter would understand. I wanted to scream. Instead, I looked down and wrote one word in my notebook, liar. When Marla got up, her voice was ice. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a misunderstanding. This is not a man borrowing lunch money from his daughter. This is identity theft, bank fraud, digital impersonation, and intentional sabotage of a young woman's financial future, all committed by someone she should have been able to trust more than anyone else. She turned and looked directly at Ronald. A father. The prosecution started by calling the loan officers who processed the applications. Each testified that the paperwork came with voice authorizations, digital signatures, and identifying information matching Rachel Kramer, except none of it was verified in person. Then came the digital forensics expert, who laid it all out. Voice recordings, not Rachel's. Email metadata, sent from Ronald's IP address. Signature timestamps, logged from Ronald's home Wi-Fi. It was damning. Clinical. Perfect. Then came my turn. Taking the stand was like walking naked into a fire. Marla kept it focused. Rachel, did you ever give your father verbal, written, or implied consent to use your name for financial purposes? No, I said firmly. Did you know about the loans before you received the first delinquency notice? No. What was the emotional and financial impact on your life? I paused. I almost lost my home. My credit was destroyed. I couldn't qualify for a new car. I had panic attacks. I barely slept. And the worst part? I looked toward my dad. The worst part is knowing the person who did it to me didn't even say sorry. He just acted like I owed it to him. Then it was Cliff's turn to cross-examine. He stood up slowly, like a man confident in his routine. Miss Kramer, would you describe your relationship with your father as strained? Sometimes, I said. But not enough to expect betrayal. He smirked. Interesting. Because we have texts from you in 2022 saying, and I quote, "I'm glad you and Lori are doing well, and I hope things finally work out for you." Sounds supportive, doesn't it? It was supportive, I said. That doesn't mean I offered him my credit score. He continued, but you weren't entirely estranged. You visited him. You talked. You sent birthday cards. Isn't it possible that your father misunderstood your kindness as consent? No, I said. Because consent isn't something people imagine. It's something you get. Clearly. And in writing. He tried a few more swipes, college partying photos, an old joke tweet about financial ruin, even dragged in the fact that I once helped Mom co-sign a car years ago. But the jury wasn't biting. They weren't looking at me like I was the one on trial. They were starting to see him. Then came the moment. Marla brought out the final piece. Your Honor, she said, we'd like to submit into evidence a recorded phone call from the defendant made to the plaintiff's ex-boyfriend, Caleb Masters. The judge allowed it. The audio played. It was Ronald. Hey Caleb, just wondering if you'd be willing to say something about Rachel helping me. Just a little support statement, nothing too specific. We're trying to build a case here. Caleb responded. I don't think I'm comfortable with that. She never said anything about helping you financially. Ronald, well, memories are flexible, right? The courtroom was dead silent. Cliff tried to object, but the damage was done. The jury was staring at Ronald now, not like he was misunderstood. Like he was exactly who I said he was. The next day, Ronald took the stand. And he cracked. Not completely. But enough. When asked if he falsified the loan applications, he said, I did what I had to do. My credit was trashed. Lori needed capital. Rachel has her whole life ahead of her. And you didn't think to ask her permission? He stared at his hands. I didn't think she'd say yes. That was it. No remorse. No apology. Just the quiet confirmation that he knew what he did was wrong, and he did it anyway. For Lori. For himself. Not for family. Verdict came in 2 days later. Ronald Kramer was found liable for identity theft, fraud, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The court ordered $71,000 in damages, loan balances plus penalties. $50,000 in punitive damages. $20,000 in legal fees paid to me. A court order for public retraction of his defamatory statements. Lori was also fined for perjury, and the fraudulent deed transfer of the lake house was voided. But there was no celebration. I walked out of that courthouse alone. My phone buzzed once. A blocked number. I didn't answer. Then again. A voicemail. You happy now? You ruined me. I hope you can sleep at night. I deleted it. I could sleep just fine. Winning in court didn't feel like winning. It felt like breathing again, finally, fully, but through a chest that had been cracked open. For the first week, I didn't celebrate. I didn't call people. I didn't go out. I just went back to my condo in Austin, curled up on the couch, and let the silence settle around me like armor. My place still stood. The foreclosure was dropped. My mortgage was back on track. But my credit was still wrecked. Repairing it would take months, maybe years. And my family? Gone. I got a single email from Melissa, my cousin. I didn't know. I swear. Grandpa told us not to believe everything we hear. Now I see. I'm sorry. I didn't respond. Not because I hated her, but because I was done handing out free forgiveness to people who only saw me after the fire. Meanwhile, Ronald wasn't done. 3 weeks after the trial ended, I got a notice from Placer County Bankruptcy Court. Ronald Kramer had filed for Chapter 13 bankruptcy. It was a blatant move. He was trying to restructure debt to avoid paying the damages. He listed me as a litigation creditor, along with the banks, the IRS, and, of all people, his country club. Marla got the notice too. I called her immediately. He's trying to duck it all, I said. Yeah, she replied. But we saw this coming. And we filed a non-dischargeability motion the second the verdict hit. What's that mean? It means the damages he owes you can't be wiped out by bankruptcy. Not if we prove it was willful fraud. And? She smiled, just a little. We've already proved that. In court. On record. He's not getting out. Turns out the bankruptcy filing actually made things worse for him. When we submitted the fraud verdict to the bankruptcy trustee, they froze his assets, audited the deed transfer again, and referred Lori for investigation into conspiracy to commit financial fraud. The salon? Shut down. The lake house? Listed for sale to satisfy debts. My dad went from lakefront cocktails to a rental condo in Citrus Heights in less than a month. I found out through Carson, the PI, who sent me a photo of Ronald loading a mattress into the back of a U-Haul. Alone. But here's the twist. I got a letter in the mail, handwritten, but this time not from him. It was from my grandmother. The same woman who told me not to come around after I sued her son. It read, Rachel. I don't know what's true anymore. Your father says you ruined his life. But Lori's gone, the salon's gone, and every time I ask him what really happened, he changes the story. Then I found the court transcript. Melissa sent it to me. I read every page. I believe you. I'm sorry for what I said. For what I didn't ask. For what I didn't do. You didn't ruin anything. You just stopped him from ruining you. If you ever want to come back, you'll always have a seat at my table. Love. Grandma Eleanor. I cried reading it. Not for her. Not even for me. I cried because it proved something I'd stopped believing. Sometimes, the truth actually gets through. In the following weeks, the dust began to settle. I started working with a credit repair agency. The damage from the loans was being flagged as identity theft, and the accounts were slowly coming off my reports. I got approved for a new credit card, just one. It had a $500 limit. But it was mine. Clean. Unstolen. And then came the final insult. Another voicemail. Blocked number again. I almost didn't listen. But curiosity won. Rachel. It's your father. I know you probably think you've won. You haven't. Families don't sue each other. They protect each other. You've made things impossible for me. Everyone turned on me. And for what? Money? Ego? I was trying to build something. I was trying to help Lori create something. You had the tools. You just didn't understand. Maybe someday you will. Maybe someday you'll be in my shoes. And maybe then, you'll wish you'd handled this differently. Click. No apology. No responsibility. No ownership. Just narcissism wrapped in self-pity. He still didn't see me. He saw a tool he lost control of. I forwarded the voicemail to Marla. She didn't even comment. Just replied. Keep it. Just in case he tries again. A year passed. 12 full months since I stood in that courtroom, staring my father in the face while he tried to rewrite the truth. Since I sat in my car crying over foreclosure notices. Since I realized that family wasn't about who you're related to, it's about who shows up when it matters. It's funny what trauma teaches you. About boundaries. About survival. About yourself. By now, my credit was almost fully repaired. The fraudulent loans were officially wiped from my reports, thanks to the court judgment and a brutal 6-month back and forth between my attorney and the credit bureaus. I got a new car, a safe, reasonable hybrid, and a promotion at work to digital strategy manager. My condo? Still mine. In fact, I refinanced at a lower interest rate than before. The same mortgage company that nearly flagged me for foreclosure offered me a better deal based on consistent payments and resolution of disputes. Marla called it cosmic irony. I called it earned. I never heard from Lori again. She vanished after the investigation into the fraudulent deed transfer. The salon closed. The Instagram accounts disappeared. Somewhere out there, she's probably telling a new man that she almost had an empire. Ronald didn't go to prison, civil fraud rarely gets you a cell. But he was stuck under heavy supervision from the bankruptcy court. His accounts monitored. His assets frozen. He filed for wage garnishment protection, which was denied. Because it turns out, being held liable for defrauding your own daughter doesn't sit well with judges. But here's where the story really ends. A few weeks ago, I got a letter forwarded from my old childhood address. It was in an envelope with a court logo, but the handwriting on the inside note was unmistakably his. Rachel. I've started the process of paying back the court-ordered damages. The bankruptcy restructuring didn't save me. You made sure of that. I hope you're satisfied. You won. I lost. You've always been stubborn. I guess now I know where it gets you. Don't worry, I won't contact you again. Consider this the last time you'll hear from me. Dad. There it was. Not an apology. Not remorse. Not growth. Just resignation. The last attempt to make it seem like this was me versus him, rather than him versus what he did. And you know what? I didn't care. I didn't feel vindicated. I didn't feel guilty. I just felt done. I went out that night with some coworkers. We had drinks on a rooftop in downtown Austin. Someone asked me why I'd been quiet for a while. I just smiled and said, I was paying off a debt someone else left in my name. They laughed, not knowing the story behind it. And that was fine. Because I knew it. And I'd survived it. So, AITA for suing my father after he took out loans in my name and almost cost me my home? Some of my family thinks so. But me? I sleep fine at night. In my condo. Under my name. With clean credit. And no illusions left.